I attended a match event for the first time a few weeks ago, so I thought I'd tell you about it. It may vary by state or organization or whatever, but here in Texas, adoption match events are pairing up families who are licensed already to adopt, like you've completed the home study, you're ready to have kids in your home today, fully licensed, with children who are already available for adoption, like the parental rights have been terminated and stuff. So everybody at these events is totally ready to go. And that's also good because like random strangers can't just go to these adoption match events, right? Like you've got to be a parent who's actually looking to adopt. So I felt that I was ready to go ahead and move forward with adopting a waiting child. I decided I think I'm, well, not necessarily done with the foster system, but I'm ready to have my forever child. I'm not really interested in, doing parent visits or will the child go home, will the child stay with me. I'm like, I want to adopt a child who is already waiting out there. And here in Texas, we have 6,000 kids at any given time who are available for adoption. The good news is about half of them are actually in an adoptive placement, and they're literally just waiting on their court date to get adopted. But the flip side of that, what that means is we have 3,000 children who don't have any current prospective adoptive placements. And so that's why we have the photo listing, which I've talked about in a different video, and that's why they have adoption match events. Now, my personal opinion is that neither of those things is expansive enough. Like, for example, the biggest surprise to me at this adoption match event was how few kids were there. There were maybe 20 kids. There were almost more parents than kids, and a lot of them were in sibling groups. So probably, if we even made it even smaller and grouped those kids by family, there probably were maybe only 10 families worth of kids there, and definitely more parents. So, and we are still in the pandemic right now, so I don't know if that had something to do with it or if adoptive events are always that small. And as someone else pointed out to me, they thought that actually was kind of a bonus because then the event wasn't overwhelming. It was maybe easier to find a match with only 20 choices than be overwhelmed with like 60 kids and trying to navigate your way through 60 kids. So, I mean, that makes sense, but I guess I had a preconceived notion of like, I've seen Instant Family and I remember what that adoption match event looked like, which by the way, it wasn't accurate. Those kids would not have been at that event because they weren't legally free. But again, beside the point, I had an image in my head of a huge event like that, and it just wasn't like that. The other thing that really surprised me is that every single child that was there, all the sibling groups, all of them, were also on the photo listing. So again, I took that as a positive and a negative. The positive was that I saw kids I had recognized, that I had sort of bookmarked on my personal profile to kind of think about, and I got to meet them in a very low pressure situation and see what their personality was like, sort of like if I'd been able to view a video of them, but even better because I got to talk to them. So I really, really liked that aspect of it being the same kids. I also liked that, like at the end of the event, I could log on to Tear and look at like the different behavior levels for that child and the, their needs that are listed on Tear in their profile. What I didn't like from a placement perspective is that it's the same kids. I don't feel like there are very many kids on Tear. There weren't very many kids at this photo listing. So it was rather disappointing for the kids to me, to only be like really, really actively looking for homes for this certain subset of kids. Excuse me. Like I just wish, I don't know, I wish more kids, I mean, again, 3,000 kids in the whole state. And this particular match event was in Harris County. So I know there's so many kids available, in Harris County. So, excuse us, Fiona. All right, moving right along. Besides all that, I got the vibe, it was an outdoor event, which I think it is normally an outdoor event, even not in the time of COVID. And it was kind of at this water park area. So it was come and go. It was very relaxed. So the event was 10 to 2, but it was okay if you showed up at 10:30. It was okay if you left at 1, you know, very relaxed in that regard. I got the vibe. I was one of the very few single parents there, but there were others. And it felt like a lot of the other parents there were inexperienced. And I feel a little weird saying that because I don't feel like I'm terribly experienced or expert or anything like that. But, all right, Fiona, you can't be up here. Okay. But it did. It felt, it was very awkward for the first 30 minutes or so before we all got into various activities and things. And it felt to me like a lot of the parents there were like really afraid to just get involved with the kids and start doing activities and things like that. For example, on the poster that was advertising that event, it said, you know, wear swim clothes. It's a water activity. I was the only one that showed up in clothes that I was okay to get wet in. And I mean, I didn't wear a bikini. I'm there as a mom, right? So, I mean, I wore very covered up water clothes, but I was the only one that showed up prepared to get in the water with these kids. And it was, so that was a bonus for me. I went and sat, it was kind of a lake with a dock, and so I went and sat on the dock and put my feet in the water, and then all of a sudden all these kids kind of came up and were ready to interact with me, as opposed to all these other parents who were kind of chilling out on the grass, afraid to, you know, start interacting and things like that. So that would be my first tip. My biggest tip is to, like, if it's a water activity, get in the water and spend time with the kids, and yeah, be a kid, have some fun. The other thing that was really helpful for me, being more introverted, is usually there's going to be food or snacks available. So the first 30 minutes, like I mentioned, were super awkward. I didn't know what to do, didn't really know how to get started. I was kind of just walking around observing. So I went and sat and got some snacks for myself, and sat next to a child that I wanted to visit with, and kind of just was quiet for a few minutes, and then made very casual conversation and like slowly warmed up to each other. And I didn't offer or share any food with her or anything like that. I did, you know, allergies and things. I didn't want to didn't want to risk anything, and COVID, of course. But that's another way, the you know, kind of sitting by kids while you both have your own snack or something like that was another great way to bond. The kids were wearing t-shirts at the event, which was great because I think there was more than one couple that thought I was like a teen needing adoption, which was a little bit comical, but happens more than you think. So those shirts are needed. What else? So I do not live anywhere near Harris County. In Texas, you can attend events that are out of your region. That's totally fine. The kids are going to be local, but you don't have to be local. You just need to be a licensed parent in that state. And I'm sure the same thing is true in other states. Something else that was important to me, like I interacted with these kids. Some things they say that are really important, like, are to let the kids interact with other adults, though. Like, don't pick your favorite and then spend the whole day with them. Let them mingle with other adults that they might bond with also. And don't do anything like make any promises about adoption or you can come live with me or exchange phone number, like nothing like that. It's almost like if you're watching your best friend's kids, right? Like you're not intrusive. You're not like trying to become their parent. You're just hanging out with them and getting to know them and spending time together. So it's very low pressure, and I liked that. And again, after that initial extremely awkward 30 minutes, it was actually a really fun day, and I'm so glad I went. So at the end, also, it was important to me, I might just be a weirdo, but it was really important to me to tell the kids that I had spent time with goodbye and not just like disappear from the event. Especially, there was this one little girl who came back a few times throughout the day. And so I when I was ready to leave, let her know I was going home, and that I was glad I got to meet her. And another little girl I had spent time with, I told her that as well. So, I mean, do that if it strikes your fancy. But I felt that was a kind of a trauma-informed thing to do. You know, people disappear suddenly out of their lives a lot in foster care. And so I don't know, I wanted to make it like I am leaving and I'm not disappearing on you suddenly. Anyway, there is an organization called KidSave, which has just started up in Houston, and I'm really excited about it. If you've ever seen the documentary called The Day I Picked My Parents, which is on A&E, it was on Hulu for a bit, now it's on Hulu if you buy the A&E package or whatever. But that organization is what that documentary is about. And so how they are different is they have child input into the adoptive matches. Well, actually, there's a few differences, but that's the big one. The other differences are you do not have to be a licensed foster parent or adoptive parent to sign up. Their focus is on mentorship and pairing up kids, usually who live in facilities, older kids, like kids ages, I think it's 8 and up, maybe it's 11 and up. You can count on it being in the double digits though, the kids. And they're living in facilities, they don't have a strong like individual adult that cares about just them. And they're trying to pair them up with adults who will like spend weekends with them once a month, who will have them over to spend holidays so they're not spending Christmases in like a facility or birthdays in a facility, things like that. And then, so their goal is kind of like, and if it turns into adoption, that's great. But if not, at least this kid still has a great mentor. But secretly, I think it's also kind of like a reverse psychology thing, like just a very low pressure, like, oh no, you totally don't need to adopt, but we know you're going to anyway, you know, and I'm all for that because I think sometimes some of us just need that really low pressure environment and some of the kids need that low pressure environment. So I really like that aspect about it. How those events go, they're very similar. They have the adoptive parents or the mentors, the adults, we'll call them the hosts, and they have the adolescents. And you meet each other at these events, but it's a little more structured. Like it might be indoors and everybody's doing activities at a table and then you rotate tables, and it's more like you definitely will meet each child, as opposed to like the match event I attended that was really laid back and maybe I only met half the kids, you know? So you're rotating, you're meeting every single child, and then at the end, you talk about kids, or you write down kids that you would like to meet again. And the kids do the same thing. They select adults that they would like to meet again. And then that same process happens again the next month at the next meeting. And if you guys select each other again, then you might look at getting paired up, or KidSave might pair you up. And I'm in the beginning stages of this, so I'm going to hopefully do a separate video on this once the ball is actually rolling. I'm attending my first event in like 2 weeks, and we'll definitely update you on that. Anyway, same thing again. It's in Houston. I don't live anywhere near Houston, but I'm willing to drive for these events because this is important to me, and that's all you need to be willing to do. You just need to be willing to drive there to do it. The other thing that I liked about KidSave that wasn't necessarily advertised is KidSave seems to focus on sibling groups that are no bigger than 2. So you either have a single child or you have a group of 2 kids. And that is helpful because the first adoption match event I attended, it was like I met this little girl that I really liked spending time with, and then I learned that there were 2 younger sisters. Or, you know, then I learned, or there was another teen there and he was one of 5 siblings. It's like, oh my goodness, you know, I'm really not set up for 5 kids over here. And so I think that's harder. You know, you get your hopes up about this child, you really want to learn more about them, and then bam, there's 4 siblings. It's like, okay, I don't know if I can do that. Whereas KidSave, again, just has those smaller groups, so you're not going to run into that same hurdle, I guess. So, yeah, I guess that's sort of it in a nutshell. Yeah. Well, anyway, thanks for listening. I'll get back to you soon about how the KidSave event goes.